is Brendan of the Brookbush Institute, and in this video I'm bringing you guys more uses for your vibration or percussive massage device. I'm going to have my friend Mike Tierney come out, and he's going to help me demonstrate joint mobilization for my sacroiliac joint and spine. So it's not a stretch, or at least a large stretch, to think, well, if this oscillates, and joint mobilizations are oscillations, maybe this could help us out. I've used it a few times with clients, and it seems to be having a positive benefit. Now, I'm not saying this is a replacement for manual mobilizations, but it is an alternative that might help save our hands a little bit. So let's start with the sacroiliac joint. How would we make this happen? So I'm going to find his PSIS, and I know what I want to do is oscillate the sacrum on his ilium. Right? That is what a sacroiliac joint mobilization is, at least a PA joint mobilization. I'm going to need a towel to throw over the top of his sacrum, because this thing over bone hurts a little bit. But I do need to apply pressure to that bone to get it to oscillate. I'm going to go ahead and use this flat piece, round piece, a little larger surface area. You could also use the foam ball piece. And what I've found so far is that the second setting on these hypervolts works pretty good to get good oscillation happening without being so intense it pushes me out, and not so little intensity that I just don't seem to be getting what I want. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put our thumb over the top of the PSIS. That's going to help me know where to put the hypervolt, right? We don't want it over the PSIS where all I'm doing is bearing into a bony prominence and not getting anything to move because my PSIS is part of my ilium. Once I feel like I'm on top of the sacrum, which I can actually feel with my thumb being over the PSIS, right? And I get a good oscillation happening, which you can also feel through the bone by adding a little bit of pressure to the device. I'm just going to hold it. And then very, very slowly work my way along the entire length of the sacrum. I'm talking like over the course of 60 seconds, slowly. Now, this machine doesn't give you much feedback. Unlike a manual joint mobilization where I can feel the joint loosen up underneath my fingers, you guys are going to really need to be careful with assess, address, and reassess. So, for example, if we used the Stork test, which is probably the most reliable of the sacroiliac joint movement-based special tests, I would want to do the Stork test before, use this device, and then do the Stork test again after, to see if it had an effect. Good. Of course, if it had no effect, you could then try manual mobilizations. And of course, if manual mobilizations don't work either, maybe we don't need to be mobilizing the sacroiliac joint for this particular individual. So that's SI joint. Now we're going to just kind of follow the same logic all the way up the spine. I will admit that the lumbar spine, it's a little tough. There's just so much muscle mass down here. It's hard to imagine even getting directly on a fast set where you'll get some motion, but maybe using an even lower frequency, like frequency 1, and using a smaller surface area piece like the bullet, you could get over like a stiff fast set, for example, at the thoracolumbar junction, and go ahead and test with your fingers, use this tool, and then test again. If it works, great. You have a potentially hand-saving technique. If not, then go back to your manual mobilizations. Outside of the SI joint, one place I've had a lot of success with using this tool is the thoracic spine. And I know you guys know that the thoracic spine and the costrovertebral joints have a tendency to get very stiff, especially in our desk workers. This tool is definitely helpful. I can definitely use my spring tests to figure out where they're tight in their thoracic spine, and then rather having to try to like manhandle a manipulation or sit there and mobilize each one of those thoracic facets and maybe even then the costrovertebral joints, maybe you try just doing the same thing. We're going to go just lateral to the spinous process, put a little downward pressure. Right, I'm on setting 2, I'm holding, seeing if I can get good oscillation through whatever stiff fast set I found, or I could slowly move over a group of stiff fast sets, We could also use our palpation skills and go over the costrovertebral joints if we thought those were stiff. Same thing, very slow. So different than our soft tissue techniques with this, I think what you guys will realize is you have to get right over the joint, and you're going to need to hold. I think 30 to 60 seconds is probably good. And then if you are doing a group of joints, you're just going to move very slowly over. Again, you're not going to get a lot of feedback from the device itself because there's already so much going on with the amount of frequency we have. There's already so much vibration in our hands. You're going to have to be really on top of assess, address, reassess. So as soon as I did this technique with Mike, let's say I used thoracic rotation as his assessment, I'm going to do this technique for 1-2 minutes, treat whatever area I'm trying to treat, and then get up and do thoracic rotation again and see if I got any improvement. Now, if I didn't, of course, I could go to my manual techniques like manual joint mobilizations or manipulations. And if that didn't work, of course, maybe we need to do something other than a thoracic joint mobilization. I can tell you in the thoracic spine, and even with the SI joint to a certain degree, a lot of times I do have to follow hypervolt with manual techniques. But here's the catch. I started this because I had one of those individuals, which we've all had, where you know that a thoracic manipulation would help, but they're so stiff it won't go, right? Like you can't get the joint to let go. You can't get maybe the cavitation that you're looking for. You try the screw mechanism, you try our screw technique, you try the pistol technique, nothing seems to work for you. Try using this, trying to loosen up some of those facets, and then go back to your manual techniques. You might just be surprised. I was actually most successful, and the reason why I started heading down the path of joint mobilizations with that exact scenario. Couldn't get the manipulation to go. Maybe I was having a bad day. Maybe this individual is just very stiff. Went through, addressed all the facets and costovertebral joints that I thought were stiff. And then I went back and I did the pistol manip, which I'm comfortable with, I like, right? And all of a sudden, rack, and everything loosened up. The patient felt fantastic. So guys, I am very curious. Obviously, this is very new. I just started doing these techniques, so I don't want you to think I'm like pounding, do mobilizations with the hypervolt. I just thought it was an interesting use. I thought it has potential, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how you guys can add to the repertoire of joint mobilizations using this thing to potentially save our hands and save our bodies and add an alternative way to get some of these techniques done. I look forward to seeing your comments. I'll talk to you soon.